Sacraments, immersing ourselves in God's love with St. Philip the Deacon. Throughout this journey, I've been inviting us to understand theological ideas and concepts in the light of deacons throughout church history, and also inviting us to understand the life and witness of particular deacons anew in the light of theological concepts and ideas. The purpose of these videos is to provide you with an entree into this deeper theological and diaconal reflection by making some initial connections between the deacons and the ideas. However, in this video, for this penultimate unit, I invite you to make these initial connections for yourself. I invite you to make connections between sacraments and St. Philip the Deacon and Evangelist. St. Philip the Deacon is often confused with St. Philip the Apostle, but they're not the same person. St. Philip the Deacon and Evangelist is among the first deacons of the church, and you can read about him in Acts chapter 6, verses 1 through 7, when those initial 7 men were chosen to serve the Greek-speaking widows. He and his daughters are also mentioned in Acts 21, verse 9, and in Acts chapter 8, you can read about his ministry in Samaria, his interactions with Simon Magus, the magician, one of the magi mentioned in Matthew's gospel, who continues to show up in our scriptures. And most aptly, you can read about St. Philip the Deacon's encounter with the Ethiopian eunuch, whom he baptized, and through whom he launched the Ethiopian church. The sacraments, which are outward and visible signs of inward and spiritual graces, as well as gifts given to us by Christ as means of grace, include primarily baptism and Eucharist, the dominical sacraments, followed by confirmation, ordination, marriage, extreme unction or unction, and shriving or confession. One acronym that you can use to remember all these 7 sacraments is becomes: baptism, Eucharist, confirmation, ordination, marriage, extreme unction, shriving, which is the Middle English way of talking about confession. Becomes. Sacraments are what God has given us to help us become at one with God. Just as St. Philip the Deacon and Evangelist immersed the Ethiopian eunuch in the sacred waters of God's love, I invite you to immerse yourself in the theology of the sacraments by reading, marking, learning, and inwardly digesting Alistair McGrath's chapter on the sacraments, and by immersing yourself in the life and witness of St. Philip the Deacon and Evangelist, by reading Acts chapter 6 and 8, and by doing some of your own research on this saint, this deacon, this evangelist, this catechist. Since these final 2 units focus on 2 deacons from the Bible, specifically those mentioned in book of Acts, Acts chapter 6, I've also included an article from the Anglican Theological Review by Bishop Tom Breidenthal entitled Exodus from Privilege, Reflection on the Diaconate in Acts, which I believe should be required reading for all Episcopal deacons, and which may help you answer the following questions. How does St. Philip the Deacon help deepen your understanding of baptism and the sacraments? And how does your understanding of the sacraments help deepen your understanding and appreciation of St. Philip the Deacon and the diaconate in general?